brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. MashaAllah, it's a great turnout, and I think it's been a while since we've seen this kind of a response to a cause, which is really unfortunate. And we have, alhamdulillah, I think Muslims in Britain generally tend to respond when there is a need, and I hope that this leads to something really meaningful. Some of you may have seen today the MTV did issue a statement in a press release calling on the British government to move beyond tepid statements. We saw some of the debates in Parliament earlier this week, and many MPs raised serious concerns about what was going on in Rohingya. I don't need to give you the facts. I think most of you have seen the persecution, the horrific acts of violence that are taking place. So I don't need to reiterate those points to you now. And we need to move beyond those statements. Be active in saying that Burma's Rohingya community, protect them from further persecution, ethnic cleansing and genocide. We know from reports that they are described as the most persecuted minority on earth. Myanmar's Rohingya Muslim community have endured mass murder, including of women and children, rape and expulsion. And Burma's de facto political leader, many of us have seen her in recent days, and also when she was Aung San Suu Kyi, who was herself imprisoned at home for many years. And now we can see the hypocrisy and the duplicity in her dealings with the minority communities within her own country. And it's good to see that other prominent leaders have come out and spoken against this in the way that she has behaved and is failing to represent and defend the persecuted people. Especially more recently this week, Archbishop Desmond Tutu and previously the Pope, even the UN Secretary General, have all spoken out. Yet we see this noble laureate who's standing by the sidelines as though it's not really a problem and it's a very sort of domestic issue for them, whereas the rest of the world is looking on now as to why, when we defended her and her position, that now she can't defend the people of her own country and give them their due rights. We face a humanitarian catastrophe in Burma, and it's imperative now for our government to act. It should exercise the UK leverage to stop further bloodshed, allow observers in humanitarian aid to pass through. Though they are appreciated, we need to move beyond just the statements. The statements of concern, and regard Burma as countries that persecute their own people, just like we do with Zimbabwe or Syria. We must act as well in Myanmar by calling for sanctions and embargoes against its leadership and state. Today in mosques, many of you who went to Jummah, I'm sure would have heard in the khutbah the imams speaking about the situation in Burma and to pray for the people who are in need and affected by the violence. There is cross-community revulsion about what is being done to the minorities who happen to be Muslim. But this is not just a Muslim issue, it's a humanitarian crisis. I'm struck by how many people across the world are in solidarity with the Rohingyas, saddened by their plight, and really concerned about how we can come together to help them. This type of concerted action from right-thinking people, this kind of audience, is where we can really make a difference and take action. So what can we actually do, rather than just words? And I hope by the end of the discussion tonight that we really go away with some of these actions. What is it that we can do? One, we can write to our local MPs. We need to lobby them. Some of them have spoken out. We need to raise a strong voice. What we don't want is for the story and the cause to just fizzle out. Because that's the age of the media that we live in. It will live for a couple of days and eventually the news stories will die down. The advantage is with social media today, you can keep the story alive. Using the right hashtags, looking up the stories, looking at who's speaking about the issue. few years ago, I met some Rohingya people, and they were really struggling to bring their cause. This hasn't just happened recently, this has been going on for years. So now is the opportunity for us to seize and to keep the story alive. Use social media, many of you are on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. Retweet the stories, retweet the truths that are coming out. Try to filter out some of the fake stories. There are a few around, but most of it is genuine from established media organizations. The BBC are there, Channel 4 are there. There are lots of news websites as well, so try and push as much as you can. That's the least that we can do. And also we should help the humanitarian organizations who are providing relief. And what great work has been done by the Turkish government. Most of us have seen it, alhamdulillah, in terms of helping the Rohingya people. Finally, I just wanted to say, I stood here in this centre after the London Bridge terror attack, echoing the words of the Prime Minister saying, enough is enough. Well, let me say it again. Enough is enough of the killing and the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya people. Our government needs to take urgent action and steps to put pressure on the Myanmar government to bring this persecution to a halt. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Brother Hamul Rashid. Some practical steps what we can do. Just out of interest, how many of us here actually vote for MP? Hands up. Any? Not many. It shows. How many of us actually called or wrote to the Burma embassy in the UK? No. How many of us went to a demonstration recently to protest? Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Few. But do you see the reality? We need to be more proactive. We need to act on our words. Other things will not change. So today's meeting is very good. House is full. There's no chairs. There's no room in the room. But unless we follow it up with some practical steps, we will not see change. So the call for the Harun is very important. That we engage in social media. We contact the MP. We write to the embassy and everywhere else. Otherwise, there will be no change. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you someone very prominent. Most of you have seen on Channel 4. Is Azad, formerly Channel 4 and also BBC. He has extensive experience of reporting from various troubled areas, including from Burma and other places. So he'll now speak briefly for 5 to 10 minutes. Azad.
I think I'll be echoing what a lot of people have said today, but from a perspective of a journalist that's been to Burma and seen the situation of the Rohingya, I just wanted to go through some of what I've seen and heard from them. Many of you will know that they have no citizenship, but what does that actually mean? It means that they have no rights, no right to education, no right to health. They live in camps, dependent on aid. The movement is restricted, so before you go into the camps, there's military and police checkpoints. And inside the camps, there's military present. And they can do as they please. Literally, these people have no rights. They do not exist. And when I went there, I think the first time in 2013 was after the violence, there was still this sense of hope that something will change. Something will happen. Aung San Suu Kyi will come into power and she'll do them good. But the second time I went, I saw the loss of hope. I could see it in their eyes, and they even told me they had lost complete hope. No one was helping them. The world had fallen silent. I was walking through the camp, I was filming, and this man stopped me. He must have been maybe 50 years old, and he said to me, "We're like the Walking Dead." He said, "We're like the Walking Dead. We just exist." And he was, a grown man with 6 ribs. And he just had nothing for him. What are these people supposed to do? Young people, for example, have all their life to look forward to: education, university, college, family. What are they supposed to do? And I came across one incident where reports have come to me that Rohingya women were being kept at a military base and used as sex slaves. Now sometimes I don't deal in conspiracy theories, I want to find out. So I spoke to eyewitnesses, and this was actually the case. There were women being kept at a military base, being used as sex slaves. Some of them had fallen pregnant, even some of them had given birth. And there was nothing that anybody could do. And this is before, like you're seeing everything on the news now. This is before then. In the second round of violence in Mongo, I spoke to a young girl over the phone, because we weren't allowed into those areas. And even now that the BBC are allowed, it's on a government-approved tour. And even then, the BBC reporter saw Rakhine burning villages and houses, and she told me how she was gang raped. And I still remember her voice as it cracked, and she cried over the phone as she told me her story, and it was translated to me, but I could still hear it now, her voice and her crying. She was separated from her family, and she was gang raped by 6 soldiers. And this has been going on for a long time. You know, we're talking about ethnic cleansing, but what we have to remember, that there's a language to ethnic cleansing, and I witnessed it. No one knew I was Muslim there. You go there and they say, well, you're from Britain, they're not expecting you to be Muslim. So the Buddhist monk would tell me, like, these Rohingya, you know, they're not Rohingya, there's no such thing, they're Bengali, they're immigrants, they're terrorists. The Buddhist monks preach to their followers that they shouldn't even kill a mosquito. But in their eyes, a Muslim, I'm not even going to say Rohingya because there's been anti-Muslim violence elsewhere in Burma, in central Burma against Muslims. A Muslim in their eyes is less than a mosquito, and I'm not making that up. In their eyes, a mosquito has more rights than a Rohingya.
Yes, you're right.
And there's a language to this genocide. They take people from the zone of being a human to non-being. These people do not exist. The people that you are seeing now crossing the border in what is one of the, maybe 21st century, the mass movement of people across the border, those are the lucky ones. How about the people that still are inside, trapped in Burma, with no rights, with no media there, with no one there to listen to their stories and report? What are they supposed to do as the world falls silent and as the journalists will move on from the story? There's always a peak, right? We go there and we report people are dying and terrible things are happening. Well, what happens? This has been going on for what, 39 years? Where was the world's media? Who reported their stories? What's going to happen in a month's time, or 2 months' time, or a year, or 10 years' time? And I can't stress enough the desperate situation of these people. I even struggle. It's apartheid. There's no other way to describe it. In apartheid, in everything except word. You know, they won't call it apartheid, but it's apartheid. And look at these human beings. They've ended up in Indonesia and Malaysia, and they're all over the world risking their lives at sea. And what have governments done? We were talking about intervention when the Yazidis were being persecuted by ISIS. What are the world governments saying now to these people? And I just want to leave you with that thought, that it's all good and well for journalists like myself and others to report on what's going on and what's happening to these people, and telling you their stories, or allowing them to tell you their stories, or, you know, being that medium. But results and action is going to come from people like you. The people have to put pressure on the governments and the MPs. If you want to see change, if you want this government to change its stance to Aung San Suu Kyi, then it's going to have to come from you guys, and you're going to have to put pressure on. Not just after today, not just in a month's time, not just in 2 months' time. Constant pressure. Don't forget the Rohingya. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for that. It's very emotional and moving, and hopefully should motivate every single person in this room to go out and do something. Our next speaker will be Bulbul Ahmed. He is the founder and director of Restless Beings, which is a human rights organisation in the UK.
Assalamu alaikum. Normally when I'm given a platform to speak, I get quite emotional, I get quite passionate, and I'm sure I've only got 5 or 10 minutes, but I've got a lot to say. I could start off by telling you about the 5,000 people that have been killed over the past 10 to 14 days. Or we could talk and have a discussion about the 270,000 people who have had to cross the border into Bangladesh from Burma. We could also talk about, as Azad mentioned, the many instances of absolute heartbreak, hearing about how families have been destroyed. But I think pictures speak 1,000 words. And I think almost all of us are here today because through WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and the like, we've seen pictures that we should never see. We've seen images of children burning that we should never see. We've seen images of women who have been raped and the aftermath of that we should never, ever have to witness. The inconvenient truth for the world at the moment is that this genocide is happening. And as the old saying goes, the revolution is being televised. Unfortunately, right now, today, the genocide is being televised. And we are the viewers. We are the people who are consuming this media. A few people will come up here, I'm sure, and they will talk about many academic perspectives, and unfortunately I don't have that capacity to talk in academic language, and unfortunately I don't have such eloquence to say things in a way which is maybe, more polite. But the reality of it is we are all sitting on our hands. Yes, there may be almost 1,000 people here. There is a demonstration taking place outside Downing Street tomorrow. We need 1,000 and more at that time as well. It's very important that we understand as British citizens, in the capital city, London, we have a government who has been aiding and abetting this genocide. A government who has been funding the Burmese military. Those bullets, unfortunately, have our names on them too. It's high time that we ask our politicians, and that goes from councillors all the way up to the Prime Minister, questions, searching questions about why we are also complicit to this genocide. Why is our government, in our name, financing a Burmese military, a military which is basically a cross version of a junta that's been in existence since 1962? Why are we inviting Aung San Suu Kyi to the halls of Whitehall? Why are we giving her the highest of respect? Why are we referring to her as the lady? Why are we calling her dog? That's the respective term. We must ask questions of the military leader as well, Min Aung Hlaing, and I'm sure Mark will go into more detail in a few moments about him. At a single beck and call, he can stop this genocide immediately. He's the military leader, he's the commander-in-chief. Sometimes our efforts are misguided. Just like how Suu Kyi has said there is misinformation about what's happening in Arakan state, we are also sometimes misguided, unfortunately. We see images, we share them. But that's where we stop. We feel angered, we write a status. But that's where we stop. We feel really bad seeing some images and someone asks us for some money and we donate £5, £500, £5,000, and that's where we stop. There is a very wide mix of people in this room, but there is a predominance of people who are Bangladeshi origin. When we talk about the Rohingya, sometimes we use the term they. They were like this. This is what's happening to them. If the borders were realigned maybe 30 to 100 miles, we would be talking about us. And if we are not Bangladeshi, and if we are Muslim, we would be talking about us. And if you go one step beyond that, and we're not talking about being Muslim, but we're talking about being a human being, we should be referring to the Rohingya community as us. And if it was our families, if it was our brothers, if it was our sisters, our children, our elderly, who are having to face the treacherous journey to come through mountains into no man's land, into a foreign land of Bangladesh where we are not really wanted, the government is not really accepting us, where the whole entire world is watching this genocide, a silent genocide, and no one is saying anything, would we still be sitting in this room and simply sharing a picture and simply writing a status and simply giving £5 or £10? I don't mean to make everyone feel guilty, but there are some steps for us to take. There are some things for us to do. I know Human Appeal are here today. There are many charities. Believe and trust in your charities first. If they say they are delivering to the Rohingya, they are delivering to the Rohingya. Whether that's in Burma or Bangladesh is neither for you to worry about or for me to worry about. What's to worry about is those who are suffering are getting the aid that they need. Aid that our government should be giving. Considering that the lines of colonial rule were drawn up by our government. Considering that it's our government that are giving military aid to Burma. Considering that it's those bullets have our names on it. It doesn't matter where the aid goes to, which charity it goes to. Step 1. Step 2. There are some people that need to be called to account. Boris Johnson, for one. His remarks on Saturday evening about the situation in Rakhine State are pitiful, they're embarrassing. No government in my name should be making a statement about a genocide like that. Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, has some questions to answer. How can she be silent when she's supposed to be a freedom fighter? She's supposed to be the poster girl of democracy. She's supposed to be the one that everyone across the whole world, the Western democracies, have lauded as the future of democracy, as the hope of democracy. Why is she so silent? Min Aung Hlaing, the military leader of Burma, needs to answer some questions. He is responsible, at least in the last 2 weeks, for 5,000 deaths. He is responsible, at least in the last 2 weeks, of 270,000 to across the border, another 40,000 in no man's land, a further 80,000 behind them in the jungle. Almost 400,000 people. Our MPs have some questions to answer. Why